welcome everyone for this webinar. What I'm going to talk about today are the latest and greatest, PMI's newest ropes. Some of these have been out maybe for around a year or so, but some of them are just hitting the market, so thought we would take a chance to bring everyone up to speed on what we've got to offer with these and hopefully answer any questions that you guys have. As Jessica mentioned, if you come up with any questions during the course of the webinar, feel free to type them in the right chat box there, and we will get to those at the end. So it's always great when we get lots of questions, so feel free to ask away, and if we don't know the answer, then we will make sure that we can find a way to get the answer back to you. So again, welcome, and let's get started. Okay, so the three new ropes that we're going to be talking about today are called Global Pro, HeatShield, and Extreme Pro. So as I mentioned, some of these have been out for around a year, maybe a little bit longer, but some of these are just now hitting the markets. So we're pretty excited about them and definitely want to share the information that we've got on them. The first one I'm going to speak about is the Global Pro. This is a rope that's designed for use with the bobbin squeeze type descenders that you'll see out there on the market. Several of them out there, the High-Tech Prism, Petzl ID, Petzl Rig, some of the AB descenders, several of them out there, Petzl Stop, there's all kinds of them out there. They definitely work better with certain kinds of ropes, and that was one of our decisions to go with a rope like this, is that it worked well with those kinds of devices. Obviously, you'll see a lot of this for use in rope access or even maybe fall arrest applications where someone is lead climbing up a structure like a tower, like you see here, and then having to have a rope that has maybe a little bit of give to it. This is a low stretch rope, so basically what that means, if you're looking at the CI 1801 standard, the Cordage Institute 1801 standard, what that means is that rope is going to stretch between 6 and 10% once you put 10% of its minimum breaking strength on the end of the rope. So they're measuring the elongation, and that's what makes it the determination to be a low stretch rope. Obviously a little different there than a static rope, which is less than 6%, or a dynamic rope, which is over 10%. This is a nylon rope, so it has a nylon sheath and a nylon 32 carrier, a nylon 32 carrier sheath and a nylon core, and it is obviously a kernmantle rope. This is certified to the Cordage Institute 1801 low stretch standard, and it's also certified to the EN 1891A CE standard, and that's why we call this Global Pro. So this is a rope that would be at home in a European market where the CE designation is so important. Over in Europe, typically, or the UK, this would be considered what they call a semi-static or semi-static rope. We tend to call it low stretch here in the States, but that's what you would be looking at there, a semi-static rope. Two different diameters that we make this rope in. The first one that I'll talk about is the 10.5 millimeter, so also known as 13/32, and this has a minimum breaking strength of just over 6,000 pounds, 6,069, 27 kilonewtons, and I believe a spool of this is 200 meters, so that's 656 feet. And if you're looking at the elongation in this, the EN 1891 standard for elongation, the test methods are a little bit different than what we apply for the Cordage Institute standard. So we've listed some of the criteria that go along with that designation here, including like how many falls, impact force, things like that. And we do have this available in both white and green. Also, 11 millimeter, 7/16 rope, a little higher breaking strength, obviously, of 6740, 30 kilonewtons, minimum breaking strength. It takes up to 20 falls on it. And again, that's not a designation that you'll usually see that goes along with the Cordage Institute 1801 standard for low stretch, but as part of the EN 1891, that is some of the criteria they like to see published with the ropes. The 11 millimeter is also available in the white and green, and both ropes are 32 carrier sheaths. Next rope I'm going to talk about, HeatShield. It's a pretty stout rope. What we did with this is for the last 3 years, we've been taking this to Bridge Day out in the New River Gorge in West Virginia, where they once a year they close off that bridge and allow people to rappel or base jump if you're so inclined. I'm a big fan of ropes myself, so that's the way I would usually go. But we took this heat shield rope out there, and we tried to see how much more use we could get out of it compared to a regular rope. And what we found was pretty amazing. I believe we logged more than 250 very fast 700-foot rappels over the course of 3 years with virtually no glazing or damage. And according to Kim Hunter, our quality control person over in Georgia, she said that most of the time if you get 1 year on bridge day out of a regular static rope, you're doing pretty good. So the fact that we got 3 years out of the same rope with a lot of abuse, including running over a lot of sharp edges on the bridges there, and it held up really well. I still have it in service. So that's what we were looking for. We like to try and make sure that we get good field tests on the material before we release it, and this one was definitely put through the ringer. So if you're looking at this as what kind of rope or what kind of environment would you be using this, you want to use it somewhere probably where you're doing maybe rope access work, or somewhere where really superior sheath abrasion and heat-resistant properties, like for long descents, is something that you would be looking at. Because we all know nylon ropes with long rappels that are fast tend to glaze a little bit. That's just a natural thing that happens as they're running over the friction devices. With this rope, this was engineered not to have that be a problem, and that's because of that Technora sheath that we have on there. So the sheath is 100% Technora, and it is, once again, a 32 carrier sheath on that. But what kind of separates this thing and makes it a little bit more user-friendly, instead of most ropes that are Technora inside and out, is that this has a nylon core. So as a result, it has a little more give to it. It feels a little bit better, has a better hand. But the good news is what this sheath, what the Technora does, is it gives it a really high tensile strength and good fatigue resistance, as well as the heat resistance that we're talking about. This is, once again, a low-stretch rope, certified to CI 1801, which, again, means between 6 and 10% stretch. When you apply 10% of its minimum breaking strength to the rope, you measure the elongation. So obviously having this rope certified to that low-stretch standard is pretty important, because a lot of the Technora ropes that you see out there tend to be static. So, and also that means knotability maybe isn't quite as what you like to see. This does come in 2 different diameters, the first being the 11 millimeter or 7/16. Has a really good minimum breaking strength of 35.6 kilonewtons. So that's over 8,000 pounds. That's really good for an 11 millimeter rope. So and if you're looking at the elongation on this, we're looking at about 8.6 with 10% of that MBS on there. So kind of right in the middle range there between 6 and 10. And that is due, again, to that nylon core that we see. This does come in just a single color of natural gold. And if you do need to order something longer than 600 feet, like for bridge day, you would be a custom order for that. But everything up to 600 feet, I believe, would be a standard off-the-shelf order. And I can double-check that if somebody has any questions about that. This also comes in 12.5 millimeter or ½ inch. So again, a really nice MBS on this, 45.8 kilonewtons, which is 10,307 pounds. So really strong rope, and roughly the same stretch on that. A little bit more, but not much. And this does just come in the natural gold as well. So for the ½ inch rope, the same as the 11 millimeter rope, that's going to be a 600-foot order. Anything more than that, custom order. The last one I'll speak about today is Extreme Pro. This is one of my personal favorites. This is designed and manufactured to excel in really tough environments. And what you see there is the Sky Bridge, or the Skywalk rather, over in, I believe, Arizona. And what we're really excited about with the Extreme Pro rope is the fact that we've got Unicore technology involved with the making of this rope, which basically means that the sheath and the core are chemically bonded together. So what this does is eliminates that problem that we have with most ropes that are run through bobbin-style descenders or auto-locking handled descenders, in that the sheath tends to get milked off of the core, and kind of you'll either get a fat section of rope where the sheath is kind of bunched up, or sometimes it will run over the end of the core, which is generally not too big of a problem as long as you know how to fix that, which is basically milking the sheath back off the core, giving a hot knife, cutting it, and addressing that. But it's a pretty common problem with those style descenders, and what we were trying to do is come up with a solution to that. And what we came across is the Unicore technology. So basically we've got the, as the rope is being made, there is a process where we can heat up an adhesive tape that's wound around the core and bonds with the sheath chemically and creates a really, really good, strong rope. The nice thing about this, and if you look at some of our YouTube videos that we've done, you can basically take the sheath and cut it completely and still have a handle descender or anything hanging off of it, and it won't ride it to the ground, because basically with regular kernmantle ropes, when you cut the sheath and you have something like a handle descender or maybe a chest descender gripping that sheath, when the bond between the layers of the sheath is cut, everything rides down to the ground. That's not a problem with the Extreme Pro rope. It basically holds its place on the rope. The sheath on this rope is a 32 carrier rope as well. It's a 100% polyester sheath on this, and then it has a core of 100% nylon, 6.6. So polyester sheath, nylon core. And this has been certified to meet several different standards for rope. First being NFPA 1983-2012, the T designation. This has also been certified to the NCZ 359.1 2007, and of course the CI 1801, which is Cordage Institute standard for static rope. So that means it has a stretch of less than 6%. As usual, chemical glitches, computer glitches. All right, let me get back on track here. Gotta love computers. Hold on here. Get back to where we were. That's not even where I put that. All right, here we go. All right, back on track. Sorry about that, folks. So static, again, as I mentioned. And it does come in just 11 millimeter at this time, so 7/16. And what's really kind of cool about this rope is it's incredibly, incredibly strong. So if you look at the minimum breaking strength, or MBS, it's 8,452 pounds. So for an 11 millimeter rope, as you probably know, that's a really high MBS, and we're pretty happy about that. If you look at the sheath slippage there, really minimal. And the elongation on this is 5%. So it's a little bit on the stretchier side of the static rope. So again, 6% and above would be a low stretch rope. So at 10% of its MBS, this is right around 5%. So a little bit stretchy for a static, but not too bad. Availability on this, we're looking at two different color schemes, the green, white, and orange color scheme, and also the coyote white and orange designation for the colors there. So there's some part numbers there if anyone's interested in that. This rope is available and is being manufactured now. This is one of our newest ones. Pretty happy with it. And again, if you're really curious about why you're worried about sheath slippage with kernmantle ropes, go ahead and check out our YouTube video at PMI, and it has a pretty good graphic demonstration of what happens there. We didn't want to show it on this webinar because video tends to get a little choppy there if you have slow internet speeds watching it from home. Okay, so this was a short webinar, just kind of getting some information out there for everyone to digest and be able to use as you're trying to make your decisions on what ropes work best for your applications. So if you're interested in purchasing any of these, obviously, or finding a local dealer, or even just getting more information or want to ask some more questions, please feel free to visit us at pmirope.com. And that's what I've got for this webinar at this point. So if Jessica wants to go ahead and take the screen back over, folks can feel free to go ahead and type in their questions, and hopefully we've got some.
Thank you very much, Tom. Let me get that screen back over to mine. Alrighty. So like Tom said, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into your chat/questions area of your control panel. And looks like we only have one so far, but
okay.
That one is... Go ahead.
I was going to say, if the question is, why did your computer freak out in the middle of this webinar, I have no idea.
Well, I skipped that one.
Okay, good.
No, the question is, how does the Unicore feel after multiple jobs on it? Does it get stiff or stay soft?
That's a very good question. We've had this asked already, and what we found is there's not typically a whole lot of difference in the hand or the knotability after multiple uses. I know a lot of polyester ropes tend to stiffen up a little after use. When you really shock load it, you can kind of almost stand it straight up and push it up. But we've not really seen that with this rope. I think that's due to the fact that it's got the nylon core in it, so it tends to be a little more forgiving once it's got multiple uses in it, and doesn't tend to stiffen up quite as much as some of the ones that are, polyester sheath and polyester core. At least, with what we've seen so far, that's what we've been able to figure out on that front.
Okay, great. Well, that was the only question that we had. So if anybody else has any more, you can type them in quickly as I kind of wrap this up.
Come on, that was too easy. More questions.
Yeah, come on, see if we can stump him. If you do have further questions that we can't get to today, you can email Tom directly. His email is now shown on the screen. It's twood@pmirope.com. And you can keep an eye on our website for future webinars. We do these every few months, so keep an eye on the website for future dates and topics. You can also sign up for those updates and for other news by following us on Facebook, Twitter, or by signing up for our e-newsletter, and all of those links are shown on your screen. And it looks like we do have one other question.
Good.
To that. It asks, can you please expound upon the use of Global Pro for lead climbing?
Yeah. So typically what you'll see, if you're looking at lead climbing in a recreational setting where you're rock climbing or something like that, where you're climbing above your anchor and there's a potential for having a fall, you've got a dynamic rope to catch your fall, and that's really what you'd like to have. In certain industrial environments, it's a little difficult sometimes to use dynamic ropes when you're lead climbing. Say, a great example of this is a lot of monopole towers where there's foot pegs to access the top, and they don't have a safety climbing system installed with the tower. That means that whoever the first person up has to climb, set some anchors, climb some more, set some more anchors, all the while running their rope through there. If you're using a classic rock climbing rope for something like that, a dynamic rope, it will give you a good fall, but as just a general rule of thumb, most dynamic ropes tend to be rated by the number of falls you can take on them. So it's kind of difficult on a lot of rock climbing or dynamic ropes to find an MBS, or minimum breaking strength. So that's where a rope that's maybe a low stretch rope, obviously that will not give you as good a catch or anything like that, but if based on your company's policy as far as using equipment that everything is maybe a minimum breaking strength of 5,000 pounds or something like that and has to be marked as such, that would be a good option for you because it does have some stretch. It will catch your fall better than a static rope, obviously, but not quite as good as a dynamic rope. But in an industrial setting, it does sometimes call for a lead climb, and that's where having a rope that's like the Global Pro, where it's got both the number of falls that you can take on it, and I believe those are factor 1 falls, as well as a minimum breaking strength. There's a benefit to having both of those posted in the specs on the rope. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, and then one more. Does the EN 1891 standard include lead climbing?
I'm not as familiar with that one as I am with the Cordage Institute, but I'm guessing since they do list a number of falls on it, for the Global Pro, I think they listed for both the 11 millimeter and the 10.5 and the number of falls. So I think since that's part of the publishable test criteria, that I'm guessing that's part of the testing, but I'm not as familiar with that, unfortunately, and I can definitely answer that better with some research if anybody would like. Okay.
Great. Well, that looks like all of it. So if you have further questions that you think of later, you can definitely email Tom directly. And we really appreciate you attending this, and we hope that it was helpful and just going over some of our new ropes. And thanks, Tom, for doing this for us.
Great. Thanks, Jessica, and thanks, everybody, for tuning in today.
And have a great day, everyone.